Hi there and welcome to this tutorial on question 4 of your English Language GCSE paper, higher paper, and as with the previous tutorials we're looking at the Summer 2012 series, so it might be helpful for you to have the sources in front of you so you can go back to this question and have a go at it yourself. Now, for 99% of my students, question 4 is the one they absolutely fear, and I would say by and large this is the question that most people find the toughest. It's their question they perform least well on, and it seems to offer quite a high degree of challenge for a number of students, and I think that's down to a couple of reasons. Firstly, the level of analysis that you're expected to be able to show when you're looking at language features, and secondly the fact that you're having to compare, which is a skill you haven't needed to show the examiner in either question 1, 2 or 3. Plus it's obviously worth 16 marks, and I think in an exam situation it's quite tough to manage your time, but you need to remember that you're expected to spend ideally about 25 minutes on this question, so they're expecting a detailed and developed response that you've really shown that you understand the texts in relation to the language, and that you've offered some really in-depth and perceptive analysis. So let's have a look at this mark scheme again. Right, by now, if you've seen the other tutorials, you'll know that Band 4 is all about being perceptive and detailed. And indeed it does ask for a full and detailed understanding in relation to the language. So we are looking for language features. Some students find it helpful to make a list of all the language features they know, so they'll write down simile, metaphor, alliteration, list of 3, whatever it might be. It's not a bad technique if this is a question you struggle with. Get straight into the exam, write them all down. Anyway, what else are we asked to do? We're asked to analyse how writers have used language differently to achieve effect. So we're asking for comparison, we're asking for analysis, and we're asked to look at effects. So at the best level, this will include evaluation. Appropriate, again, quotations, and focusing on comparison. So you're juggling a lot of balls with a question like this, so let's get straight on and have a look at an A-star full mark response to this. I think that this student's response is a really useful example for those of you who might think this question is about feature spotting 20 different language features. You know, you've found some imperatives in there, some hyperbole, you've even found a qualitative adjective. Fantastic, but it's not just about picking out language features, it's about really being able to analyse what the effects are and be able to compare it to a second text. So let's have a look. Language is used to very different effects in the two texts, source 1 and 3. Source 1 informs the reader about the beach to city scheme, whereas source 3 entertains by creating excitement. Language differences arise out of differences in audience and purpose. I think this is quite a useful intro. You know, you've got time with a question like this to plan a little, like they have done here, and also to introduce a sense of comparison straight on. You know, we've got useful comparative language like whereas, and immediately addressing the idea of language differences. I think a good way to start off a response like this is just as this student has done, both articles. And immediately you're showing the examiner you can make a connection. Both articles use contrasting language to convey an important difference in ideas. So this is a specific connection and link, isn't it? It's not they're just saying both articles use emotive language. This is very specific. They both use contrasting language to convey an important difference in ideas. That's pretty perceptive. Source 1 contrasts the preconception of sharks with the real danger of toy inflatable boats. Okay, useful quotations here, embedded within their ideas. The pairing of ridiculous ideas emphasises the genuine nature of the risk presented by inflatables and the need for the safety and education that the scheme provides. Similarly, Source 3 contrasts the Garden of Eden discovered with the emaciated human beings to convey different facets of nature and to emphasise the blessing that such beauty brings to the worn-out men. This is quite a developed comparison, and it's quite a sophisticated point to have made. They haven't gone for obvious here. They're looking at how each text uses juxtaposition, how they are creating contrasts for particular effects. And it is quite a developed point here. Okay. See how they continue with this. Again, both texts use listing. Okay, so this is the second language feature that I've seen. Both texts use listing to convey ideas. Source 1 describes slip on a t-shirt, slap on a hat, slop on the sunscreen. This brings the pace of the RNLI's teaching and creates alliteration as part of a repetition of SLP sounds to show how much the scheme needs to teach the children, as well as evoking the sound of sunscreen from a bottle. By contrast, listing in Source 3 conveys the overflowing of beauty with green moss, grass, rushes, gorse bushes. Sibilance and a repeated sh sound give the newly discovered paradise dynamism and vitality. The list suggests that there is too much for the men to take in. And see here the examiner said, close, perceptive analysis. I actually find this first point, I don't know about you, a bit confusing, but this second point, where they've found a contrast, I think that's really sophisticated, very perceptive. Let's see how the comparison here is continued, and indeed the examiner has said focus on comparison here. Whereas Source 1 uses technical language, so this is our kind of third point of language feature comparison. Whereas Source 1 uses technical language and statistics, Source 3 uses vivid descriptions. Source 1 discusses the use of public rescue equipment and incident statistics relevant to an RNLI magazine reader and reinforcing the text's role in informing. These terms can be used as the reader will understand them due to the magazine's audience. On the other hand, comparison, Source 3 is aimed at evoking an image for the reader. It thus describes a torrent of grey water and boulders the size of armchair. The use of the word torrent conveys great power and energy, so they're focusing here on the effects of one specific word and creates a vivid image in their mind. The description of boulders like armchairs allows the reader to relate to the men's situation and to understand the immensity of their struggle. Yeah, so it's relatable because an armchair is something that all of us can, relate to. So really sort of strong focus here on the effects of the language features. Once more, both texts use alliteration. So we're about on language feature 5 because the description language there was 4. Source 1 describes plenty of play acting to create a sense of fun and energy, as well as a faster pace to the RNLI session. Source 3 describes how the men staggered forward off the snow and sank onto rocks by the side of the river. This could show the men's desperation to rest and feel relief, or the sibilance could be said to emphasise their weariness and weakness. What I like about this is that it's quite tentative. It's what I would describe as sort of looking at alternative interpretations. It could show, or it could mean this. Really exploratory and really analytical. So to conclude, overall there are several similarities between language in the two texts, often giving rise to different effects or emphasising differences in audience and purpose. There are also strong differences in language and its aims and effects. And you can see the comments left here by the examiner. Really strong focus on comparison, focuses on language features, and the thing that I think is probably most powerful in this response, the perceptive analysis. So language, comparison, analysis. That's our 3 skills for this. So remember, 25 minutes on this. Lots and lots of P skills. And you've obviously got 16 marks available. Best of luck.